Welcome to episode 018 of the Beacon broadcast. It's January 23rd, 2024.
I'm here, Rick, Ravenheart.
And so is myself, Taylor, aka Kodax.
Kodax.
Or if you met me in my Laser Quest days, I would have been Agent X.
That's right.
Let's jump into our usual first topic. What have we been playing? What have we been buying? Rick?
I went first last week.
Alright, fine. I'll go first. Okay, first I'll talk about what I've been playing. In this past week, I've been checking out this demo for this game called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Wow.
Grand Blue Fantasy is a mobile game that came out like a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of a web-based mobile game, is my understanding. Like you're basically playing in a browser, and you can also play it on PC.
Okay.
But it's like one of the really, really early mobile games, like gacha-style mobile games.
Gotcha.
And it's been around for a long time. It's got beautiful artwork. A bunch of old Final Fantasy veterans work on the game. Especially the artwork is done by, I can't remember the artist's name, but if you see his artwork for Grand Blue Fantasy, you're like, immediately you recognize it as almost like it kind of looks like the Tactics. No, I might be wrong on that.
Final Fantasy Tactics?
No, I don't think it's Final Fantasy Tactics. Anyways, you would recognize the artwork.
Do you know the studio name?
Psy Games.
Psy Games,
yeah. And I've been interested in the game because the game has such beautiful artwork, but there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through in order to play it in North America in English.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like officially support it through like the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. You have to like use these interim apps and things, and you have to make accounts on like Japanese websites and stuff. It's kind of a hassle.
Okay.
But in the last couple of years, they've trying to expand into more of a big multimedia kind of thing with Grand Blue Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
They hired Arc System Works to make a fighting game, Grand Blue Fantasy Rising, and they just had sort of a sequel to that game come out just a month or so ago.
This is all on mobile? Or?
No. These are now we're exploring PC and console.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then this Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is like their first like AAA action game.
Okay.
And originally this game was being made in partnership with Platinum Games.
Oh, wow.
But like 4 years ago or so, they went their separate ways on the project. Although some people from Platinum did quit Platinum and go work for Psy Games to continue developing the game, including the game's director.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so it's a game I've had my eye on. I'm not kidding you, for probably 7 years since they first unveiled it.
Wow.
So I've been following it for a really long time, and the game is coming out next week. So I'm really excited to play it. The demo was a lot of fun. It's got like a big sprawling kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also this sort of like a quest hub that's in like the town.
Yeah.
And you can go tackle these quests with like other players cooperatively if you want.
So what kind of, you said RPG, is it like open world?
No, it's more linear than that. I think you kind of go on missions.
Okay.
Like you kind of have like a hub, and then you go on like a big like a story mission, and then you come back to the hub. I mean, maybe some of the story missions are linked in succession.
Got it. Okay.
But then in between doing these missions, there's these quests where you go and like tackle like a horde of enemies in like sort of an arena, or you can go tackle like bosses, and they're almost like MMO style bosses. And the AI is pretty smart. You can either bring a party of up to 4 of your characters into these quests, they call them. Kind of reminds me of Monster Hunter in a way, but not like a big map, just like a smaller focused arena.
I gotcha.
It's actually really, really cool. And the characters are all so incredibly varied. There's I think 15 characters that are going to be available at launch, and they're going to continue to add new characters for free to the game.
Wow.
Post-launch.
So are there Final Fantasy developers working on this new one? This Relink?
People who originally worked for Square Enix, yes. I know Uematsu, the original composer for most the older Final Fantasy games.
Nobuo Uematsu.
Yeah, has done music for Grand Blue Fantasy, and surely his music will also be in this game as well.
Gotcha.
But it's not, doesn't mean it is Final Fantasy.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotcha. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, maybe I could show you the demo before you leave later.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's got a gorgeous visual style. I think you might be interested in it.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. The demo is awesome. I spent a bunch of time just kind of figuring out which of the characters were kind of my speed. Seems there's a lot of nuance to really, like, master a character. Mm-hmm. Like, there's very, like, Platinum style action where, like, if you get timing just right on things, like, you get, like, extra perks to your attack, or, like, if you dodge at the right moment, you can do, like, a follow-up kind of thing.
So very real-time combat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is like a true action game.
Yeah.
This one, I understand the mobile game is turn-based, but this is fully an action game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, platinum, level action.
What platform are you playing the demo on?
PS5. I believe it's going to be available PS5, PS4, and PC. Okay. No other platforms at this time. Yeah.
Crazy. Is the PC version like going to be browser based too, or is it?
Oh no. Relink, this new game, is like, going to be like
on Steam or something. Right?
Yeah, on Steam. This is like a 40 gigabyte,
got it,
or bigger game.
Big game.
Yeah, it's not browser compatible, I don't think.
Running some 4K graphics.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could stream it to a browser.
Yeah.
Other than that, I haven't been playing too much, but I did pick up a couple games. There's one game we both have in common. I'll get to that in a moment. But the other game I picked up, or I guess I ordered it more than a month ago, but it's now here. Mm-hmm. It is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, and it is the WLF edition. So
what the hell?
It's like Western Liberty Front. It's like the name of some like collective
a faction in the game.
Yeah, basically. And so this edition, which I'll unbox right now, was only sold directly by PlayStation.
Wow.
You had to buy it from their store. You couldn't pick it up like at Target or GameStop or anywhere else, and it sold out after about an hour of being available.
So what is there anything different gameplay wise, or is it the same ISO
so file? I know The Last of Us Part 2 came out 3 years ago, and now we already have a remastered. So I know some people are probably kind of groaning at that fact.
That seems to be a running theme with Naughty Dog.
Yeah, they do a lot of remasters. So this particular edition, it just comes with some extra goodies. Mm-hmm. The game itself, I do love this shiny seal over here. Yeah, that's really nice. So this edition comes with these trading cards, 47 in total, with 8 of them being limited edition holographic cards. A patch from the Washington Liberation Front, a set of 4 enamel pins, and Rick's favorite, a steelbook display case.
Oh yeah, of course. Does it? I mean, okay, retail case or not?
Well, okay. So a couple years ago, they made The Last of Us Part 1 remastered for PS5 or whatever.
It was only in a steelbook.
It was only in a steelbook, and I believe it's the same case for this as well. I own the standard copy for PS4, so I'm kind of okay with that. Now, I will say this isn't just the same game, like, thrown into the PS5 version. They did actually add some really cool stuff to this. Mm-hmm. You can play the game with director's commentary the entire time you're playing it.
Like vocal commentary?
Yeah, vocal commentary.
What? That's new. I've never heard of
that. So that's pretty unique. They also added in a new, like, roguelike mode. That's unique to just this edition. It wasn't in the original.
So randomly generated environments?
Yeah, like, so you pick a character, you can play as a whole bunch of different characters, and you kind of get thrown into this thing, and you gotta try to make it to the end, or as far as you can, kind of.
Wow, that's... So a randomly generated environment in a survival game.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, like, for people who are looking for, like, more reason to come back and, like, experience that gameplay, now they have something. I know there's new trophies for that new gameplay mode, but they're, like, almost like they're DLC trophies, so they're not required to get the platinum. There's also, I think they're calling them deleted scenes. They're basically chunks of the game that were like partially completed but they didn't make it into the final cut, but they basically tied these up so you can go check them out. Like, they're not added to the game like extra scenes.
But they're not like broken or anything.
No, I guess they're playable enough.
They put colliders and stuff around it.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a pretty unique remaster, I would say.
Yeah.
There are some cool, it kind of justifies it. And what's really cool is if you own the PS4 version, you can put in your disc, and for $10, you can get this remastered version. Like just a $10 cost, which is pretty generous. I think they could have just said, forget it.
You have to buy it all over again.
Otherwise, standard retail copies I think are $50, and this WLF edition was $100.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot, but if you look at the
aftermarket, it comes with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, if you look at the aftermarket, it's like $200 easily.
I imagine.
Last of Us.
So, I'm okay. Of course, I'm guessing by way of PlayStation's policy, this is available digitally. So, if you didn't get in on this, you can still play it digitally, right?
Yeah, there's still standard retail copies too for $50.
So
you can go into GameStop and get if you want a physical copy of the PS5 version of Last of Us Part 2.
Okay, right.
Then you can just go spend $50. Okay. If you already have the PS4 version, for $10, get the upgrade, the digital upgrade.
But this LWC remake or whatever edition.
The WLF edition. It's just the name of the edition that comes with the physical goodies.
Okay, so it's the name of the collector's
edition, effectively.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. There's no I think there's a code for some early unlocks of some perks or something like that. They give you, I guess, a little bit of a head start that are exclusive to this edition, but they're things that you can normally get in the game.
Gotcha.
It just gives them to you earlier.
Got it.
So there's no real gameplay advantage or anything like that.
So when did this come out? Or this is effectively Last of Us Part 2 remastered.
Yes, that's its official title.
And this is the collector's. I call it a bundle.
Yeah.
I refuse to call it an edition because that implies that it's a different game. Title, I guess you'd say, in my opinion.
Okay, so the industry calls them collector's editions.
Yeah, I know they do. That's what they do. So, but this is just a remastered title. So you could just go get Last of Us Part 2 remastered, and that's what it's called, right?
Yeah, the official title of the game is Last of Us Part 2 Remastered.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I got confused by...
Well, you know what? If you were confused, maybe the audience was confused, so now everyone is fully got it cleared up.
Okay.
Before we jump into the next game that I got and you also got, I was at GameStop last week, and they had a bunch of their pre-order bonuses that they just were trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
And they had them all sprawled out on their desk, and I picked up a couple. I got this set of Super Mario RPG pins.
Those are cool.
And Persona 5 Tactica coasters. They're paper coasters, so I don't know that you'd really want to use them.
Right. Yeah, no, who would?
But I actually picked up 2, so this set is for Rick.
Oh, wow. Thank you, dude.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was going to say, awesome find. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, I know. And they were also giving away steelbooks for the newest Call of Duty game.
Oh, wow.
I did get one of those, but
that's fine.
I only got one. I didn't think you really...
I would have taken it, but that's okay.
I wasn't sure.
My mind is opening to Call of Duty.
Really?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I haven't played anything yet, but if I were to, I'd probably go play the original Modern Warfare and start there.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about it. Part of me is starting to have a hankering for old World War, not necessarily World War II.
Okay, I was gonna say.
But military first-person shooters.
Their campaigns are notoriously short.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
it's an online multiplayer game.
with a campaign tacked on.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, some of the more recent Call of Duties
don't even have
foregone the campaign.
Yeah, right.
Which to me is like,
what? That's. I don't know. I feel like that is actually like alienating.
Oh yeah.
Part of your audience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no doubt they have a player base that doesn't bother with the multiplayer and just wants to play through the new campaign.
I'm having memories.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm getting all this like Call of Duty swag because it's everywhere.
Okay.
Right. Monster Energy, Call of Duty. You know what I mean.
You're being brainwashed.
I'm getting the dosage. And I'm remembering like my times with Medal of Honor, and those kind of games, and those are good memories. So I am kind of like feeling a wartime military first-person shooter.
They made a new Medal of Honor for Oculus, a year or two ago.
That'd be cool,
and it won like an Oscar or something like that.
Yeah,
because it was like part game, part documentary or something like that.
The Medal of Honor series has like interstitial footage and stuff in the game.
Yeah, this one was like uniquely like you would listen to like some veteran or some survivor or someone's like account, and then you would like play that account in like VR.
Play their war story.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like, and that is kind of unique to Medal of Honor. Yeah. It's always kind of been in that direction.
Right. And that one was actually made by Respawn, I think.
Really?
Produced that, yeah.
That sounds really cool. It's on Oculus?
I believe it's exclusively on Oculus, yeah. So you'd have to have one of their VR headsets to experience that.
So, are those games sold through Steam, or does Oculus have
Oculus has their own storefront.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Meta has their own storefront.
Meta.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, but what was this other game that we got?
So another code, Recollection.
Recollection.
Which is a great title.
Or Recollection, you could read it that way too.
It's literally like a play on words.
It really is, yeah.
But yeah, so what this is the collector's edition of the Trace.
No. What? Not a collector's edition.
Well, it's a compilation. Right?
A compilation.
Okay,
there you go.
That's what I meant. Of the Trace Memory franchise.
Yes.
Which, if anyone remembers, Trace Memory came out on the original DS pretty early on in the DS's lifespan. And it's a game that I played that I remember extremely well because I was pretty young when I played it. It had 2 sequels.
One sequel for the Wii.
For the Wii.
Which did not release in North America. It only released in Europe and Japan.
Right. Okay.
So these games were originally developed by this Japanese company called Sing, C-I-N-G. Mm-hmm. And they actually went under a few years ago. I want to say like 2, 3, 4 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so people were wondering who made the new game then.
Right.
And so it was actually Arc System Works.
Okay.
Who has experience making similar adventure games, the Jake Hunter games.
They've been around a while.
Arc System Works? Oh, yeah. I mean, they're known for their fighting games.
Right.
Blaze Blue.
Yeah.
But they also do visual novels as well.
They did the X-Blaze visual novels.
And they're known for the Jake Hunter visual novels as well.
Yep.
But they actually brought some of the original staff back for this another code recollection. Mm-hmm. The artist drew this incredible cover art.
Yeah, it's great. I love the art.
Like, you have to have this physically.
Yeah,
you
have to.
You have to.
Which is another argument for why physical games.
Yeah, I could not imagine seeing this and being like, I want to buy the digital.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. One thing about Trace Memory, and I would have to research it to really talk about it extensively, but I remember that it was some girl wrote the story for the game. For the original.
That might be true. Yeah, I'm not totally certain of that.
Yeah.
I did play the demo for this that they released back in, I think it was December. Mm-hmm. And so it goes through the entirety of the first chapter of the game. And the presentation is so nice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like a port.
Right.
This is a from the ground up
remake.
Like, totally, updated.
It's going to be, again, we were talking about this privately, but it's going to be interesting for me to see exactly how they handle the gameplay from the original, because it was extremely touch-based. Like all the puzzles,
Oh yeah,
running around, even movement and everything was very touch based.
it took a huge amount. Like it used the DS to its full extent.
Yeah, it did.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah, it did.
The gyro. I mean, the Switch has some of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the touchscreen and the gyro.
Right, the motion control.
But the dual screen effect is definitely gone.
Yeah, of course.
So I've heard that I haven't gone beyond the first chapter, and I never played the original Trace Memory game. And it was only called Trace Memory in the US.
Okay.
In other parts of the world, it was always known as Another Code.
Gotcha.
So that's interesting that they decided to just forgo the Trace Memory title over here and call it Another Code.
Mm-hmm. The Trace Memory title, this might have to do with translation, but the game centered around a machine called Trace, which tapped into your memories or stored your memories, or you could transpose memories. I know, but okay. Like it tied in, like the Trace Memory phrase tied in with the actual story.
Yeah, I guess for whoever was localizing it at the time, thought Another Code wasn't a good enough title. So.
Right.
I mean, I can. What do you think about that when localization just says
takes liberties?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
obviously they do it with the intent of wanting the game to sell,
right, and also wanting it to be enjoyable to that audience. For me, it's best when the localization team is working closely with the creators.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, almost in tandem.
Right.
I think that happens more now than it did, especially back then.
Yes. Where
the game would come out in Japan, and then it would be 9 to 18 months later.
It'd be sent to a third-party company to handle the local. Like, their hands are off of it after they finish it.
Yeah, I mean, they usually... I think what happens is they send all the text over, the text gets translated, and then the original company is responsible for, like, swapping it.
Mm-hmm.
The developer, I mean.
Right.
And sometimes that creates issues, but then they got to send that back to the localization team, and then they got to play through it and make sure there's no issues.
Yeah, I'll do like a second check.
Yeah, I have heard that with games like Animal Crossing, well, more and more Japanese games are releasing day and date the same place across the board.
Right.
The only place that's happening with pretty much every big release.
Mm-hmm.
I know visual novels tend to release much later.
That makes sense.
The word count is astronomical for some of these games,
and especially if they're voiced, and you know, and there's a lot of voice. Like it's not just like a voiced Tomb Raider game. There's a lot more voice samples in a visual novel. So that makes total sense.
Yeah. But anyways, back to Another Code. I've heard that puzzles have been changed. Puzzles have been removed. I think there might be some new puzzles. Okay. And there have been some minor tweaks to the story as well. Nothing like earth-shattering. But I heard people say that, it was clever. Like, that kind of makes more sense than it did originally or something like that.
I know that in the original there were a crazy amount of endings.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wonder if they kept all that, or if they...
I haven't read anything about people like changing endings or anything, or removing endings or anything like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's cool because this is North America's first opportunity to play the sequel, and my first opportunity to finally get some hands-on time at the series. Yeah. And who knows? This almost feels like Nintendo sort of testing the water, like, hey, are people still interested in, this kind of game?
It's definitely a sign of Nintendo opening their mind to the fact that Westerners enjoy this. Yeah. Like, there is an audience here for this kind of stuff.
So hopefully, maybe, I don't know whether this greenlights a sequel, or whether it just, hey, let's give more games like this.
Right.
To the world.
Right.
We don't just have to have big AAA Mario. More Mario. Like, give me another Code Party.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need another Mario Party.
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, that's welcome too.
Right. That's true.
But yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Oh man, Whoa, Super Smash Party. How has that not happened, dude?
Oh yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they haven't done more with the Super Smash property.
Yeah,
Like they could have like Super Smash Brothers Olympics or something like that.
yeah,
you know?
for real. It can be applied so many different ways. Okay, so that's all we've been up to. Oh no, you've got a little bit of what you've been playing, right?
Oh yeah. So last week I talked about how I was had just gotten to the forest and what's the region called?
Kitakami.
Kitakami.
This is Pokemon Scarlet you're talking about, right?
Pokemon Scarlet, yeah. I was just gonna say that. But so now I've done that photo thing. It was interesting.
Yeah. Not like Pokemon Snap.
Have I not played the new Pokemon Snap, I might have been more impressed with it.
Right.
But it was fun. Like
Yeah.
it was a good little twist
Right.
on the mechanics of the game and stuff. The Blood Moon thing, I saw that really cool design of it.
So this is Blood Moon Ursaluna we're talking about here.
Ursaluna, yeah. So I was not anticipating it being a
new form of Ursaluna, right?
Yes.
Because Ursaluna was just introduced a year, like 2 years ago now, I guess.
Right. I was expecting a Paradox Pokemon of Ursaluna.
Right. So Ursaluna, real quick for people who don't know, in Pokemon Legends Arceus, Ursaluna is a new evolution for Ursaring.
Ursaring, yeah.
Which, pretty...
And
that blew my mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one important detail about Ursaluna is that it's very involving the phases of the moon. So it can only evolve on a full moon and...
when exposed to a block of moss.
Right.
What's it called? It's not peat moss.
Peat moss, yeah.
It is. Okay, it is peat moss.
But even in Pokemon Go, you can only evolve Ursaring on the night of a real world full moon.
Which is a pretty clever implementation. I like it.
This Blood Moon form, right? Because the Blood Moon is a real thing.
Right.
Like that's a
so the implication is that can only happen when there's a Blood Moon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this rare form.
And it's cool because Ursaluna is on all fours, but Blood Moon Ursaluna stands up on its hind legs.
It's all
it's
like Five Nights at Freddy looking.
Yeah. It's
got one of its eyes out.
It's like werewolfy kind of.
Yeah, right. Which is cool, and I like that it is like bipedal.
Yeah.
Because Ursaring is standing up.
Yeah, it's cool because in Legends Arceus you can actually ride Ursaring.
Yeah, normal Ursaring.
Or Ursaluna. Yeah.
Ursaluna, you're right. Ursaluna normal form is on all fours. But then this one's standing up, and it's...
Did you notice when you were doing the battle with Blood Moon Ursaluna that, they play the Legends Arceus battle music?
No, I didn't.
You didn't pick up on that?
Yeah.
They threw some cool little callbacks in there.
That is cool.
So I remember doing that and being like, oh, man. In the other parts of the map, there's going to be, more new forms for, the Arceus new evolutions or something.
Yep.
But it's just the one. Yeah.
And I like how they made the battle formatted like the bosses in the main game.
Yeah.
With the... What were they called? Titans or whatever?
No. Alpha Pokemon.
That's what they were called in Legends
Arceus.
I'm talking about in Scarlet and Violet when you go with Arven to battle the four...
Because it has, the big, huge HP bar.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then you have that catch option at the end.
Yeah. Guaranteed.
Yeah. It played
That's always nice.
Yeah. I'm glad they made that change.
Because then you can pick up whatever ball you want to put
Exactly, and you don't have to worry about it getting wasted.
So there is no... By the way, that's the only Blood Moon Ursaluna you can get.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, it's not available. You can't find them in the wild or anything like that.
Right. I mean... Of course it's going to come to Pokemon Go. Of course there will be future ways of getting it.
But I'm sure they'll probably... That'd be cool if they tie it in with a real Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how... What are those, 1 or 2 a year?
Yeah, it's like a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's like a eclipse almost. Yeah. It's a rare thing. But anyways, really cool stuff. Beyond that, I went and did the third sign. Which I had already journeyed to, so I already had the marker on my map to fly to it. So now I'm back, and I'm starting to see unfold what you had talked to me about initially with Kieran.
Yeah.
Starting to get dark.
Yeah.
Like that's starting to reveal itself more.
Okay, cool.
But now I'm back and I'm about to walk into the Civic Center.
Okay.
And that's where I saved.
Okay. Very cool. So, keep us updated. I'm excited to talk more about it with you.
Oh, yeah. You did a good job not spoiling.
Yeah, I'm really trying not to. If I don't know exactly what you're talking about, I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't remember. I remember going to the Civic Center, but I don't remember like what part exactly you're in. So I'm just gonna.
I'd found all 3 signs, so that whole quest is done.
Each of the signs were related to one of the hero Pokemon.
It's more like they told a different big story detail about the 3 Pokemon, rather than one being about each.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, the town considers these 3 Pokemon to be like their protectors, right?
Correct.
And there's this...
And the Ogerpon
is like the monster.
The villain.
Yeah, the villain.
Right.
Has the story kind of revealed anything about that yet?
Yeah. So, the girl, his sister...
Yeah. Carmine.
I can't remember this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I really like the characters of this particular game, and I've just played the episode that involved all of them, so their names are kind of fresh in my head.
That makes sense. Yeah, we had that talk with her grandfather, they were looking for masks to go to the festival.
The festival, yeah.
And that's when...
Oh, did you play Ogre Oustin?
I did, and that was actually really fun.
So we need to do some of that cooperatively.
Okay.
Because if you can do it on the hardest difficulty, you get a guaranteed shiny Munchlax.
What, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
So at some point, but I understand you can't do it on your own. Like, it's not possible to do the hard mode and achieve the score that you need to achieve.
It's not humanly possible, or the game doesn't allow it?
It's more like it's not humanly possible.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, like the AI helpers are just like not
Too
good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, yeah, we could do that.
I'm not even sure if it's possible with 2 players only. I heard that like in one of the more recent patches, it made it a little easier.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's something we can do. But yeah, that is something I would like to get around to.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just did it the one time for the story.
Yeah, me too.
It was fun. Yeah. Like, I thought it was fun once you understood
how
like the Squovitz or whatever, the grievance, like how that works.
Yeah.
For a while, I was running around looking where to put the seeds or whatever. Couldn't, and had no clue.
Isn't it like where you start?
It's very close to where you start. Okay. But I didn't see them. You start like in front of the tables, so you never, unless you look behind you.
So we're talking about like this mini game.
Yeah.
In the first DLC of the Scarlet and Violet DLC combo.
Yeah.
Where you basically go and collect these items and you got to bring it back to this like basket or table or something. Yeah, but meanwhile, while you're collecting, they're
color coded too.
Right. While you're collecting them, Pokemon are coming to like take the food or whatever that you've collected out of the basket. So you have to like balance scaring them away and also collecting at the same time.
You have to like multitask with that.
Yeah. But you can get some cool you can get these mochi items that they work kind of like the feathers do.
Right. I have some of that stuff in my...
But one of the mochis, which I think is more rare, will actually reset like your EVs in a particular stat, like completely.
Oh, wow.
So those can be helpful when you need to like reconfigure a Pokemon for like a 7-star raid or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that is helpful to have.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
So what have we been up to? This past week, we got every single episode thus far of the Bit Beacon broadcast uploaded on YouTube as a podcast playlist. So you can now just search for the Bit Beacon on YouTube. I think our address is youtube.com/@thebitbeacon or something like that.
Something like that. You just search the Bit Beacon.
Yeah, it's actually, I noticed if you look for the Bit Beacon broadcast, like YouTube seems to get prioritized. Like, I mean, it makes sense because Google's going to prioritize their stuff. So yeah, you can find us there now. Every week, I'm going to make sure that episode gets into the playlist. It won't be uploaded at the same exact time that the regular podcast goes live, but my goal is to have it up that same day.
Yeah.
It's a bit more work on my part. I have to turn the audio into a video. Not too challenging, but it just takes a little more time.
I mean, like I say, we can tag team that effort.
Yeah, it's just I can't time it the same
Yeah.
way. You know, like the podcast goes live universally on all
Yeah.
platforms pretty much, but the podcast I
It's
have
still,
to.
I mean, it's still good that we have it on YouTube because some people just aren't on Spotify or aren't on Apple
I think a lot of
Podcasts.
PC gamers they like to just have like a little window in the
Yeah.
back open with something going on YouTube in the background.
Yeah.
So
It makes sense.
yeah, yeah. So it's there now. You can find us one more place. There's no actual video.
Yeah,
to-
it's just an image of our logo.
It's just the logo is playing for the whole hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever the duration is of the podcast. So
Right.
don't get too excited.
Yeah. We're not showing our faces, guys.
Although most of you probably know what we look like.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then something, an event that I think you might be interested. It's not exactly an event,
Mm-hmm.
but right before you got here and we started recording, Square Enix announced that Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Director's Cut is coming to theaters in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
for the first time for 2 nights in February, in English one night, and then the original Japanese the next night.
And
So subtitle.
with subtitles?
Yeah, with subtitles.
Cool.
And so this is, I guess, the first time the director's cut has ever been in theaters in the U.S., and they're timing it for some reason to come out right before Final Fantasy Rebirth Part 2 comes out.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. And they did release a small statement about this re-release of this movie, and I'll let you speak to what the movie is in a second, because you know all about it.
I'm holding myself back.
So Square Enix said this release marks the first time the beloved director's cut will be given a theatrical run. Fans are encouraged to arrive early to their showings for exclusive introductory content, including a history of Final Fantasy VII and its connection to Final Fantasy VII Advent Children in particular. Witness gameplay from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and enjoy new interviews with Final Fantasy VII Advent Children director and Final Fantasy VII Remake creative director Tetsuya Nomura, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director Naoki Hamaguchi, and producer Yoshinori Katase, who will give unique insight into the production of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the remake project as a whole.
Yeah, wow.
So I don't know, is that something you'd be
Yeah,
interested in?
Yeah, we have to go do
The
it.
showings, I think, are at 7 p.m. And then it sounds like the introductory stuff will maybe be in the half an hour or so before then or something like that.
Okay, yeah. Let's plan for that.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that the English version is good.
Yeah.
Like the English voice acting.
I mean, I'm down to see it in whatever language you prefer.
Okay.
I mean, I am curious if... It doesn't say anything about them redubbing it with the new voice actors that they've got for the Rebirth project.
I don't know if I'd want them to do that.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying I want them to do that either.
Right.
But I wasn't sure if they were like re-releasing it to somehow tie it into the Rebirth or the remake project as a whole, or what? Because they did re-release Crisis Core last year, pretty much untouched. I think they made some adjustments to the gameplay to make it better,
Balance. And
more
stuff.
balanced.
Yeah.
But they didn't change any of the story content the way that the remake games have.
Mm-hmm.
But the second remake game, Rebirth,
Right.
features Zack apparently very heavily somehow.
Yeah. Okay.
So obviously they wanted people to be familiar with Zack from Crisis Core,
Right.
which is canonically set before the events of Final Fantasy VII.
Correct.
So, yeah. That makes me wonder, like, hey, why are they releasing Advent Children right before? Even though Advent Children takes place after.
Zack shows up in Advent Children, but as like a memory, along with Aerith. And,
right, spoilers.
Yeah, right. I mean, not really.
I know. If you don't know about Final Fantasy VII's big spoilers yet.
Yeah. If you haven't played Final Fantasy VII yet, guys, I'm not going to spoil it, but some characters die.
Yeah, and so like the second remake game, Rebirth, is the game where that character famously dies in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
So this game is going to feature that scene, but they've been cagey on whether it will play out
the same way.
How it did.
Yeah.
Will another character die? Will they die again? you know, so I mean, this is where Final Fantasy VII remake project can go like
Yeah.
in another direction completely.
Right. Which I hope it doesn't. I really hate that crap. I'm like, and that's just me. I know it's a preference. I'm not.
Well, again, remake. I've said this before. I don't think it means remake like in the traditional. Like,
I know.
Western
You have your
sense.
whole hypothesis. I think you've said it before.
I mean, they've changed. Like it's already kind of veered off in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I know.
Yeah, there's like some I don't know.
I haven't played it, but
stuff going.
I've heard about this.
I
don't. Everyone seems to be like doing the same thing right now. In that
which
regard.
is
like Mortal Kombat 1 is kind of doing the same thing. You know, where they're taking the original story. I guess I mean, I can only assume they like painted themselves in a corner with their original storyline.
Okay.
So it seems like everyone's just going back and remaking their original story, but with a twist, you know, and it's just...
I mean, I would... If you're talking about anybody but Square Enix, I'd agree with you. But, like, the guys at Square Enix, especially the Final Fantasy people, they're on, like... They're thinking, like, 3 steps ahead of, like, the fans and stuff, you know?
Right.
Like, with all the crazy theories. And I think... Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, that character is going to die again. And that they're just playing up the, like, ooh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You know?
They know how you're thinking.
Right. Okay, I have a hypothetical question for you.
Yeah.
This would be, like, crazy. What if instead of Aerith, like, Cloud dies?
Yeah, I mean, that would turn it into a completely different game.
Right. And then, like, Aerith becomes the protagonist.
The protagonist. Or Zack.
Or, I mean, Zack is presumably dead.
In the remake already?
Well, Crisis Core seems to be canon to the remake.
Okay. But the other games aren't.
Well,
okay.
Because Crisis Core takes place before the remake project begins.
Right.
So...
Okay, yeah, I got you. Okay,
yeah.
So the game that came... Well, games, I guess.
We haven't seen anything to indicate that Zack is playable or anything like that. Okay, gotcha. At least not yet. Right. I mean, maybe there's flashback sequences where he is or something.
Is Vincent playable in the remake already?
Not part 1. So Rebirth, I believe. Yeah, they've showed like the scene where they're in the tomb or whatever. Yeah. Where
opening his coffin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
They've showed some cool this is what it looked like on PS1 and this is what it looks like on PS1.
Even in Advent Children in the original DVD, maybe not the original DVD, but definitely the director's cut, they had like this whole 30-minute video that you could watch as like an additional thing, where it's like doing basically like a showcase of every cinematic from like the original Final Fantasy VII to kind of catch you up.
Okay.
And kind of doing what that's talking about with like doing like a comparison.
Oh, okay.
And they do a lot of that. Right. They show the character side by side.
It does really look like the Rebirth game, which is the second game in the remake project. Mm-hmm. It has like a much larger cast than part 1 of the remake project has.
Final Fantasy VII has a lot of characters. And I'm sure this remake's introducing new ones too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of new like Shinra people in the game.
Yeah, that's cool.
They've introduced some new Shinra people.
And the Turks are another faction.
Yeah. Apparently, like, there's new towns. Square Enix has said The Witcher 3 served as inspiration for Rebirth.
That's a pretty big game, right?
Yeah, and so, like, I guess now that in, Remake, the first part of the remake story is largely set in, what's the original town called?
Midgar.
Midgar. Where the Shinra Corporation and all the big,
the big power plant.
The flattening.
Yeah. the sapping the life energy.
And so from there, at the end of the game, they kind of like go off into the wilds.
Okay.
And so I guess they're really going like big. Like they're adding like new towns that didn't exist in the original game. Things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's expansive. I like that. I don't know. I hope they don't.
I think
If they're going to change stuff, they better have a good reason, like a good excuse why.
I mean, I think you should reserve judgment until you've played all 3 parts.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think there's potential for something cool to happen and almost like tie. I know I'm thinking like big picture, and you're thinking more like this is your typical remake crap, where they just change things and add things.
Well, everyone else seems to be doing that, and they seem to think it's just okay, and everyone's cool with this, right?
But yeah, I do think Square Enix. I think they're kind of in agreement with you. That's why they held off on remaking 7 for like there was always this demand to remake 7.
Do you remember we were at PSX one year
when they originally announced Final? I mean, the crowd in that room.
No, they didn't. They didn't announce that. They showed something else for Final Fantasy 7. They were bringing Final Fantasy 7 to like PSN or something.
Yeah,
and everyone like it was the biggest letdown. Like
people like got out of their seats when like the logo came up, and then it just shows the PS1 game.
Yeah.
For PS4.
And then it announces at the end of the trailer or whatever that it's just coming to PSN.
Coming to PS4. And everyone's like,
no.
But then it was like a year later, I think, where they announced the remake project.
I don't know if that told Square Enix that they needed to do it, or if they already had planned to do it.
I mean, if it was actually just 1 year later, then there's no way they weren't already working on it. But if it was multiple years later, then I would not be shocked if the people in the room were like...
It was so visible.
Yeah. But like that's the fervor of Final Fantasy VII, man.
Oh, yeah.
People want to gobble that up.
Well, people wanted the remake.
Yeah. And now they got it. And not just one. They got 3 parts.
They better not butcher 8, man.
So, like, if one day they do an 8 remake... Well, what if they do, like, more of a straight remake?
Yeah, I'd be totally down with that.
Okay, because 7 is... Yeah, they seem to be playing with it
They're playing with it for sure.
I don't know if
it's making me nervous.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if they did, like, a straight remake and just...
Well, rumor has it Final Fantasy IX is getting a from-the-ground-up, straightforward remake.
Okay, that's cool. Well, that game deserves that.
Yeah. So, that we should be hearing about soon. I mean, I feel like it's been like 2 years. There was this during the pandemic. There was this NVIDIA leak where they leaked like all these games that were coming out in like the next couple of years.
Yeah,
and on there was like a Tactics remake, a Final Fantasy IX remake.
Really?
And a bunch of stuff that actually all came true. So there's only like a couple things that have yet to be like scratched off this checklist.
A Tactics remake, it's about time.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people say like, oh, they put out these remakes to test the waters to see if people are interested in them. Mm-hmm. And so like publishers or like developers are like, well, you got to buy the remake if you want like a new game in the Tactics series. Mm. But understandably, players are like, I don't want to buy...
A remake.
Just make a new game.
Yeah.
And the reason they do the remake is because the story's already there, the foundation is there. So it's just like...
It's less of an investment for them.
Yeah. So it's like, that's them testing the waters. So, I don't know. Part of me is like, you're damned if you do. Because then you're throwing your money away for a game maybe you're not going to play because you want to play like a new game in the series. Yeah. But at the same time, if you don't, then you're ensuring... that you never get that new game. But you basically have to buy a game twice.
I think remakes... I'm for remakes, and I hear everything you're saying.
Yeah.
And I do agree that, like, remakes... I agree with the solution that remakes present.
Okay.
I think they could stand to do more with some of the remakes. Like, give us a remake from the ground up, but give us some new content at the end or something.
Okay.
Like something...
post-game stuff that doesn't affect what happened in the original game.
Right. Or it could add to it, but doesn't change.
Okay.
Like,
nothing significantly. Like, all the core beats still happen.
Yes. Everything that happened and is established happened.
Okay.
And is established.
Okay.
And then, maybe there's something else that happens at the end or something.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Okay.
Give us more than just the same game.
Right. Okay, I see that.
But yeah,
that's what they were doing with the Final Fantasy Advance games. They were tacking on new story stuff, post game, optional dungeons that weren't there originally.
Yeah,
new gear.
A lot of remakes have done what I'm saying.
I think that was easier to do with pixel graphics than it is now.
I want to say the Ocarina of Time 3D did have some additional stuff. It might have been like one area or something.
So you're talking about the one for 3DS, right?
Yeah.
I know there was like some hidden, like if you move this one box, there was like a little mural of like Link on one of the sky wings from Skyward Sword.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like there was like little Easter eggy kinds of things.
Stuff like that.
I don't know that there was.
I mean, that is still content. But yeah, if it's a new mode or something is what I'm talking about, or like a brand new dungeon.
Well, I mean, so now what people are got to be clamoring for, right? Like, they finally got in Final Fantasy VII being remade from the ground up for like today's like consoles.
Right.
I mean, so where's Ocarina of Time's like not because Ocarina of Time on 3DS was basically a straight remake.
Yeah, it was ground up.
Yeah, but like
I mean,
the dungeons were all the same.
I don't trust the Zelda writers the same way I trust the Square Enix writers. Okay. They've messed some stuff up. That Hyrule Historia thing, no. They discredited themselves with me. Like, that was so bad. Yeah,
I don't envision if Nintendo does like a from the ground up, like Hyrule Field is now this big open world. I mean, it was already an open map.
Right.
I would call it. But let's say Hyrule Field is now like 20 times as big. Right. And there's like little houses and villages and stuff all over the place.
Twilight Princess size.
Even bigger.
I want bigger. I don't want bigger.
But I mean, you have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth doing a Witcher 3 style open world now.
Yeah. True.
So I mean, like, if Nintendo's gonna go like big and not take the Final Fantasy remake path and make it 3 different games.
Right.
And just make one big Ocarina of Time remake.
I mean, is there enough in Ocarina of Time to warrant
fleshing out
something that big? Like, I don't think there is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like, they both came out around the same time, right? Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time.
More
within a couple
or less,
years of each other.
a few years, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they were, like, the 2 biggest games of their era, for sure.
Those 2 and Doom, I think, were, like, the...
Doom's early 90s.
Yeah, it was, but I think those were kind of competing for the title.
Okay.
I think GoldenEye, too, was in there.
Oh, GoldenEye's a big one, yeah. So, I don't know, yeah, I am curious. The team that remastered, or that made Ocarina of Time 3D for the 3DS... They went on to do the Link's Awakening remake.
Yeah, which was good.
Yeah, and that's their team name is Grezzo, Grezzo. They've been quiet ever since Link's Awakening, which was already like 4 years ago, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. So people are like, I don't know. They're probably working on another Zelda remake of some kind. Yeah. Seems likely.
I think the next obvious step is remaking the Oracle games.
I would love that. If they want to use the same kind of toy look of Link's Awakening, I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was shocked that we didn't get those. Like already. Like I was like, you already have this cool new thing that you made. This look this look for the game, so why not just easily do the other 2 Game Boy games?
Right. And I mean the Game Boy graphics between Link's Awakening and those 2 games were pretty close. Yeah. Like the assets and stuff looked pretty much the same.
Yeah, they could go, I guess, for a slightly different identity. I mean, I understand with Link's Awakening, spoiler alert, Link wakes up at the end and it's all a dream. Hence, Link's Awakening.
The game's only freaking 30 years old.
But and I guess that kind of maybe made sense for the toy look. Like Link was having like a weird dream, So maybe they would want to go with a different visual identity for Oracle of Ages and Seasons. But if they're not doing that, I think they could be remaking Ocarina of Time. You know what I would rather see them do?
What?
Work on an original Zelda game.
Right.
A more traditional.
Yeah.
So they could have Grezzo making like...
a top-down Zelda game.
Either that or something more like Ocarina of Time.
You know what they should do? Dude, forget... Okay, the Oracle of Ages is my favorite Zelda game.
Okay.
Yeah, I've said that. That's right. You didn't hear wrong, guys.
I don't think... No one's going to fight you on that.
Yeah.
No one's going to say, like, you're an idiot.
Right. I mean, yeah, but no one's calling that one the best. But regardless...
Well, you didn't call it the best. You said it's your favorite.
Right, yeah, that's true. I think they should do Link to the Past. In that style.
I would be down for that, too. Link to the Past has gotten...
Yeah, it's got
a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's got more attention. You're right.
On the Game Boy Advance, it got a remake. It wasn't a straight port. Because they did use all new art assets for it, even though it did maintain a sort of visual parody with the original Super Nintendo game.
Or Minish Cap. Being in that style.
Yeah. But, like, we have the main Zelda team working on these crazy, huge Zelda games now.
Right.
That's
going to open up, like, a void, right?
Exactly, where people are now missing the traditional Zelda experience.
Smaller, top-down...
Or even just the original 3D style.
Right.
Where it was like dungeons and stuff.
Right.
And there's not really dungeons in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
Not in the traditional sense that players are used to. So it would be cool to see a new 3D, like a AA Zelda, I guess, whatever you want to call it, instead of the AAA one.
Right.
I think, of course, it's probably easier to just remake more of the older top-down games.
Right.
And I'd be fine if they did that.
I could use a new Four Swords game.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Like, bring that stuff back.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's get in the news.
Yeah, we may have to cut some of this news out because we've been talking for an hour already.
Yeah. About nothing.
No, this is great. All right, so this first topic... Got more Square Enix stuff. I hope you guys aren't tired of it.
Well, we just made our thing about Square Enix, and now we're going to talk
Well, I know
about
Rick loves Square Enix, so, like, if I have that in the news, he's going to be...
If they show up in the news cycle, put them in.
Yeah, okay. Well, you've got a directive. So this, in particular, is about... Square Enix had their investors meeting sometime recently, and they put out the Q&A that takes place at the end of the investors meeting, where basically the president responds to questions from the audience at the meeting. And to be in this meeting, you have to be invested at such a level that you're able to get invited.
We don't know how much it is, but it's a lot.
Yeah, you have to be like a high level investor.
Right.
So we're going to go through these questions one at a time. Rick will read the question, and I'll read Takashi Kiryu's answer.
All right. So that Takashi Kiryu is the CEO of Square Enix.
Who we were talking about.
Yeah, we were talking about him last week, I think.
Well, last week we tacked on the segment that we recorded from the previous episode.
Right. Okay, so first question. What is required to execute the productivity-enhancing initiatives that will bolster the profitability of your HD games subsegment? And how will you go about executing those?
He says, at present, some of our development efforts are carried out primarily by internal resources, while others are conducted primarily by external development firms. Over the long term, we need to strengthen the internal portion of our development function. More specifically, I mean that we need to concentrate our development resources on carefully selected new titles that we will develop to a high level of quality. At the same time, rather than focusing solely on major titles, we want to also take on new challenges, partly because we want to add to the diversity of our portfolio of titles, as I noted earlier, while also enabling our developers to expand their skill sets. Through this approach, we hope to strengthen our internal development capabilities, gain greater development proficiency, and establish a development function that enables us to consistently produce high-quality games, thereby bolstering our profitability.
Mm-hmm. So what do you take away from that?
The part that stands out to me the most is when he's talking about, instead of focusing solely on major titles, they want to take on new challenges, partly because they want to add on to the diversity of their portfolio of titles.
Yeah, so that's the exact sentence that I took away too.
Yeah.
In one, not to spoil anything, but in one of the later answers, you'll see him start talking about the market dichotomy between indie and AAA titles.
Yeah.
And I think that he's noticing, like, there's a market for this and there's a market for this. And an indie game has the potential to rival a AAA title in some cases. And so I think he's seeing that as a sort of shift, which we talked a lot about shifts in our last conversation.
I mean, we've seen recently, just this past week, there's this hot new game called Pal World.
Yeah. Oh, I heard about this.
That's blowing. It's not marketed by the company as Pokemon with guns.
Yeah, but it is that.
But I mean, that's kind of like the image that they give you.
Right.
And it's not exactly that.
Yeah, it's survival and years, cooking and
right, and you can
crafting.
Kill the monsters for like meat and products.
It's Pokemon meets like Monster Hunter, basically, in a way.
Yeah.
With guns.
And anyways, this game has exploded.
Yeah.
Like we're talking 5 million copies in like 3 days.
Right.
Like from no one ever having heard of this game 2 weeks ago.
Right.
To it being like the biggest game on the planet right now.
Right.
And you got companies like Square Enix that are probably looking at this like,
yeah,
what the heck?
Yeah.
And so when they're talking about this like AA or like indie kind of game, they're probably wanting to see more stuff like that in maybe their portfolio.
Right. Another example of like, because that happened now, but Five Nights at Freddy's, the original, was made by one dude.
Yeah.
And it was a very indie game.
Yeah.
If you play it, it looks indie as hell. And look at that now.
Yeah. Now it's got movies. There's merch everywhere
books,
for that game.
Authors are writing books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy is set.
So, I mean, there's no question anymore that indies can do what AAA does.
Right.
And yeah, he's seeing that as like, hey, he's actually smart, and we see with a lot
Let's wait till we get to that question.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Why don't you read the next question?
Sure. Has the way that your development function, I don't know if this is typed correctly.
This is copy-pasted exactly from their Q&A.
Has the way that your development function has spread to cover so many bases made controlling your development efforts more difficult?
So what is he saying here?
I don't know.
Okay, let's break it down. As the way your development function has spread to cover so many Okay, so basically, in the previous thing, he's kind of saying that maybe they've spread themselves thin across a lot of games.
Right.
So now this investor is asking, has it made it more difficult to be spread so thin? Is basically I think what he's saying.
I can test that that's what he's saying in the previous one, because he's talking about wanting to diversify their portfolio further with more
right
stuff.
Well, let's continue.
Okay.
So he says it has less to do with our development function and more to do with the numerous entries in our lineup. I want to structure our development function so that we are able to ensure higher quality from each title by slimming down our lineup.
So that is about slimming down.
So he's saying we want to make less games, but also a greater variety of games.
Right. Okay.
So this is the thing that like jumps out at me the most, because in recent years, Square Enix has been putting out a lot of really interesting, what I would call AA kind of mid-tier games.
Right. That's true.
We've got like Harvestella, which is like Rune Factory / Harvest Moon meets action RPG. We've had the Diofield Chronicles. We've got like the Octopath games.
Right.
You know, like they're not like AAA. I mean, some of them might be AAA in budget, but you know, like they don't sell or like they're not marketed like a AAA, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is. You know, and I think it's really cool to see Square Enix making a lot of these games.
You also have a lot of spin-offs, I noticed, that kind of fall in line with that AA kind of thing. I'm looking at Dragon Quest right now.
Yeah.
With Builders or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Builders was actually wildly successful for them. And then, for whatever reason, after making the second one, they just decided, here's this wildly successful thing that players love and it's making us a lot of money.
Right.
Let's stop making them.
Yeah.
And instead, they put out this game called Dragon Quest Treasures, which was not very good. But they did just put out Dragon Quest Monsters 3.
Right.
Well, that's not what it's called here in the States, but that is what it's called over in Japan.
Right.
And that's been doing really well for them. They just announced 1 million copies sold in just a month.
Right.
Which is pretty good.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of spin-offs and a lot of smaller, original titles.
So I think I like that stuff.
Yeah, I do too.
So this is him saying we want to move away from that. We want more high quality. We want higher quality, less mid quality.
But what is quality? Is it scope?
I mean, I think those games that I mentioned, they have a budget feel or look to them. Like, they're not, they're a little clunky. Like, not like unplayable, but like, they're just not, they don't have that polish. They don't have that extra year of polish that like some of the bigger games get.
Okay.
Because like
you're talking about like Octopath Traveler when you say that?
Not so much Octopath Traveler, but more like Dragon Quest Monsters 3, for example.
Okay, yeah.
That game is not a looker. It's a little sluggish. It's a little clunky.
Yeah.
But it's still an enjoyable experience.
Right.
So that's why it's doing well.
Right.
I mean, also Dragon Quest just almost sells universally in Japan.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it actually is a good game.
Right.
Unlike Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Dai.
Yeah.
The anime game that came out earlier last year,
well,
which we'll talk about. We have a whole question from an investor. So, what's the next question?
Next question. As our customers...
Nope, that's the answer.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Have you been unable to slim down your lineup until now?
Why have you been unable?
Sorry.
So why has Square Enix been unable to slim down their lineup? Kiryu says, as our customers' needs and the types of devices available have diversified, we have tried to produce hits by developing a wide variety of titles rather than by focusing only on certain ones. I believe that this has resulted in the splintering of our resource pool. Meanwhile, there have been clear winners and losses among the major titles released recently in the gaming market, and it has become possible for even indie titles to make their presence felt. The market is increasingly polarized between blockbuster and indies titles, but I feel that we have developed many titles that fell somewhere in the middle. I want to make clearer distinctions going forward. So, I mean, that's almost... There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
He doubles down on wanting to make less games.
Right. So, this is the one that I had mentioned, obviously, about him...
Talking about indies.
Right. He says he wants to make a clear distinction between small and big games, basically.
So, like I said, they've been releasing a lot of like AA games,
yeah,
or like mid-size games.
I feel like that's a spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, but he's saying like they want to do away with their mid-size,
yeah,
and either make small games
or
big games.
Right.
It sounds like. So rather than have these mid games that fall somewhere in between, like he just wants to be a 0 or 100.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what that means.
Yeah.
Like in the long term.
Right.
Some head scratchers
from
Kiryu lately.
I don't know how I feel about that.
So, and I wonder, is he saying they want to try to make something that feels like an indie game?
Yeah, I'm not liking that either, because we have seen that happening quite a bit. We've seen like big AAA studios come out with pixel art games that are like intended to fool you almost.
Square Enix has seen some success with an indie game that they sort of put under their own umbrella by publishing it on behalf of another developer, and that would be Power Wash Simulator.
Right.
This game has actually taken off like really well. It's led to all kinds of cool like third-party collaborations where you're power washing the DeLorean from Back to the Future and like all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's crazy.
I think they even have like a level where what's Cloud's bike?
Oh, Fenrir.
Yeah, like you're power washing Fenrir.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess people really like that game. I've heard good things about it. It's apparently like a very kind of like soothing and just kind of like de-stressing game, because you're just like being very mathematical and like with like, you know, you're supposed to manage how much water you're using and like, you know, clean power wash things.
All right.
It was free on PlayStation Plus, I think this last month, either December or this current month. Mm-hmm. I claimed it, but I haven't checked it out.
Gotcha.
But apparently it's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, yeah, Square Enix has seen success publishing that. And so maybe they're wanting to get maybe more involved. Mm-hmm. Maybe not making the indie games themselves, but maybe helping. They have an indie initiative.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it's called?
No, I don't.
But yeah, they help fund, or not, I don't know if it's fund or help like promote like indie games. But there's this specific Square Enix indie initiative. I remember we looked into it a long time ago.
It rings a bell.
And so I think that's where they found Power Wash Simulator. But yeah, they got more invested into that game than I think they have any other indie project.
Gotcha.
Even so, I think that has like a physical release even from them now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against that.
No.
I'm not talking down about that.
But yeah, I don't know. This is concerning. I don't like that he wants to move away from mid-sized games.
No, I don't either.
I like mid-sized games. They're usually smaller. They don't take as much of my time.
Right. I mean, why do this?
Yeah.
One game that kind of comes to mind that I played fairly recently, a decent chunk of, World of Final Fantasy.
Right. That's definitely a mid-size.
That would be a mid. Yeah.
I mean, the game is like 7 years old now.
Yeah, it is. But I mean,
yeah,
it's good.
There should be more of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, not less of them.
Right.
Or as many as they make now, they should continue making that many. So yeah, it'll be disappointing to me if we see Square Enix go the route that I feel like a lot of other publishers and developers have gone, where we're getting 1, maybe 2 new games from them every console generation.
Yeah, but the games are so damn huge,
right,
that you're going to be playing it that long.
But it's like, what if that... So, like, a developer, Square Enix spends, you know, all their resources on 3 huge games rather than 1 huge game and, like, 5 mid-sized games or something like that.
Right.
So then now you have less games overall, and, like, you have less games that might potentially appeal to you too. Yeah. Like they might put out a big game and you're like, oh, it's not for me. Well, it's like, well, that team's 7 years of work is just, you know, not for you.
Not for you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I don't know. I want there to be mid-sized games. I'm with you on that. I don't feel like I want more. I don't feel shorted with how many games are coming out.
Right.
So it's not...
I mean, it seems where he's coming from is like, maybe some of our bigger games haven't done as well because we're distracted with these mid-size and smaller games.
Right.
So I'd rather not have these mid-size games so those efforts can be spent on our bigger games.
Right.
Which... yeah, I don't know if that's the right move.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Kiryu's taken a lot of bets.
Yeah, he is.
He's
really... this guy is changing stuff up.
Like I said in that conversation we had that aired at the end of last week's episode.
Yeah.
I really think his tenure could be incredibly short
or incredibly long.
You know, depending on if his bets pay out big.
We've seen CEOs stay on board permanently,
like for decades.
Yeah, for decades from some big thing that they did one time.
Right.
So that is.
I think it's more common in Japan for CEOs to be there for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's not so much like Western where CEOs change like
all the time,
every other year.
Right.
Like, you know, we saw...
Bobby Kotick was Activision CEO forever.
Yeah, I mean, he was also, like, the owner.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean...
True. But, I mean...
he could have been fired by the board.
You have those too, though.
Yeah. That's true. So, it's not exclusive to Japan. But, yeah, I feel like some companies, like, every year, they just... I mean, I guess if they're struggling, you tend to see CEOs change more frequently.
Right.
Because they're, like, trying to find the right guy.
Yeah, they're just trying to like find something that works.
Yeah. So we got one more question that we wanted to highlight from this Q&A.
So my impression is that the market's reaction to Infinity Strash Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Dai has been harsh. What is your take on it internally? You mentioned that you intend to transition from a product-oriented approach to a market-oriented approach. Can we expect better quality to result from a narrowing in the gap between what the market and your customers expect versus what you are delivering?
Kiryu replied with this: "We have received harsh feedback from from customers on Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. Side note, I've heard people call it Infinity Trash.
Yeah.
And we also acknowledge that problems exist. We think that the time that elapsed between the anime's broadcast and the game's release, as well as the gap between what customers expected from the content versus the game's elements that we focused on as the title's selling points, also contributed to the feedback that we received. In terms of switching from a product-oriented to a market-oriented development approach, I would note that in the case of our smart device games, we have begun to reflect feedback from customers that have played titles ahead of their release into our development process. We are also working to put mechanisms in place that allow to incorporate customer feedback on HD games in the initial stages of development." All right, so this tells me two things here.
Mm-hmm.
They're switching from focusing on the product to instead focusing on the market and making a game for the market rather than just making the game that they hope the market will want.
Right.
So you could see that negatively or you could see that maybe positively.
I actually am glad that's a good explanation of what that means, because I actually didn't know what the difference was.
Okay.
But as far as the Infinity Strash Dragon Quest game, I actually don't know anything about it.
So it's based on a manga from like the 90s or something like that was turned into an anime recently in the last few years, and they decided to make a tie-in game for the anime. But the anime wrapped up like a year or two ago, and the game just finally came out a couple months ago.
Got it.
So a little bit here he's talking about like they made a game that was focused on they made a product. And they hoped that people would like the product. Mm-hmm. So they're saying that they want to shift to look at the market and see what the market wants and make a product for that market. So I don't know. I see that as if you I see that as almost like you could be. So like you have the game director's vision for a new game,
right? And
they're like, no.
Yeah.
The market wants this.
Right.
You need to make this.
Right.
So I could see being a director at Square Enix becomes like, well, I don't want to make that, but my job is to just make it anyways.
Right.
Which could lead to less passion in projects.
It could also, I think even worse in my opinion, take someone's creative masterpiece like that and adapt the crap out of it to shoehorn in what the market wants.
Right.
So
you gotta love market research.
Yeah, right. Market research shows me this, so make this. It needs to have this. And so if your lead game designer or game director's masterpiece is like some story heavy like adventure thing, but the market wants like arena battles, they're gonna just push that in there or something.
And then the story will just be a little bio for the character.
And it doesn't work at all, what I mean?
So I don't know. I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing that he said that I thought was noteworthy. I'm not really focused on the Dragon Quest game doing poorly, but I think he has interesting comments. But when he says, we're working to put mechanisms in place that allow us to incorporate customer feedback games in the initial stages of development. So what that shows me, or what that tells me, is that they want to clue the customer in on products early on in the game's development, so that when people are watching trailers and gameplay, they leave comments and stuff. Yeah. And that way they can look and see what people are saying. Maybe they have early demos, and that way they can take more of that feedback.
This is the one thing in this answer that I actually like.
Yeah. Square Enix is sometimes very secretive with their games.
In the past, they have been.
Yeah, and sometimes they're more forward.
This guy, remember when we went to the Final Fantasy 16 event?
Yes.
And we saw how much, like like disappointment management was going on there, for lack of a better word. Like they were telling people, the game hadn't come out yet. They were telling people, it's this, it's not this, don't expect this. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were really trying to make us understand what the product was.
Right.
I feel like that might... This reminds me of that.
Okay.
Like, this is kind of the direction that this guy is kind of...
Well, you know, what's funny is people were, like, hesitant about the game, and then the demo came out that night, and then people got really hot on the game. People were like, oh, wow, the demo's great.
Yeah.
Combat's awesome.
Yeah.
But then the game comes out a couple weeks later, and it does, like, okay in reviews. It gets, like, upper 80s in Metacritic, if you care about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it didn't, you know, blow people away. A lot of people said the combat is great, but it's the same throughout the entire 60 hours.
Yeah.
I disagree with that.
People like to complain.
I feel like some people, maybe they only played 10 hours and they're like, it's the same thing, I'm done.
One of the things that they did say at that event was, you know, this is, we're dropping you in this demo for late combat.
Right.
This is not going to be like this. It's probably going to take you upwards of 10 hours to get to your combat feeling like this.
Yeah.
Like, they were really trying to manage people's perceptions of, like...
I think there was significant worry.
Yeah.
I think they had pre-order data.
Yeah.
And it was probably below expectations.
Yeah.
So I think that's what led them to try to get people excited about it. I mean, it worked for me. I love the game. Does the game have problems? Yeah. There's a lot of... The game would have been so much better if it cut out all of its NPC junk side quest stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, if you just went from story beat to story beat to story beat to story beat...
So you're making an argument pretty much that's against open world games, these big... Because that's one big
16's not
key staple.
An open world, though.
That's true, yeah.
But it does have... Sometimes what you have, like, necessary side quests. And I'm sorry, there's a horn in the background.
Car alarm.
So it's like the writing goes like it's like you just gotta have this crazy high stakes thing, and now it's time to like go upgrade my potion sack, you know? And it's like I gotta go pick some herbs for some guy.
Yeah.
You know, and some of these side quests are optional. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that likes to do all of them.
Yeah, I'm a completionist, so that makes me drool.
I will say some of them were kind of boring.
Yeah.
Although there were some of them where I did kind of get invested into some of the NPC stories. Because some of them do have sort of a continuing story. Like, you go back to NPCs and sort of continue their quest.
Right.
But there were also some that I was like, the bread baking guy, like... I don't care about his story.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah.
And I realize it's optional. I don't have to do it. But there were sometimes mandatory, like, interim quests. And some of them, it would have just been so much better to just cut that and just keep that high energy going rather than have these, like, peaks and valleys constantly.
I get it. Or, you know, curate it in a way that makes it feel more fluid and it works. Like,
I mean, there's ways
every game has to have low points and high points. Right. You can't just have high octane the whole...
No, but those valleys didn't have to be so low.
Yeah.
They could have been, like, you know, closer to the peak rather than, like, these, like, dramatic dips.
Right.
We've got, like, 4 hours of, like...
Just...
tedium.
Picking wheat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to say it's totally like that. And, like, the combat was part of a lot of these things. And so, like, I was having fun doing it. I mean, if it was more streamlined, I think it probably would have been better for Final Fantasy 16 rather than try to have this sort of, like, half-baked open world stuff.
Well, he's talking about... How did he word it? What was the wording? Market-oriented? No, that's not it.
They want to incorporate customer feedback on HD games in the initial stages of development.
That's it. So,
I guess they needed to be more open about the game.
Yeah, I guess.
Earlier on.
Yeah.
But then I feel like you run the risk of, like ruining surprise for the player.
Yeah.
Like,
I think both can be done.
Okay.
I do think that. I don't think that you... Because Square Enix... I don't know. They're geniuses. Like, they come up with, you know... when they do their reveals and stuff at the Game Awards and stuff, and it's this big thing. I don't know. They find a way to just make stuff work.
Yeah.
So I believe in them, but I know that that's like me being biased. But I don't know. I think that they can have a big reveal. It might be more cinematic than gameplay, But then it's like from there, it's a journey.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. But like I feel like, you see a lot of games that get announced and then like they release within the next 6 months.
Right.
That's kind of how I prefer it, rather than like the endless like 6 years of waiting.
You're not good at waiting. I know that.
For example, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink,
right.
That game I was telling you I've been following since like 2014 or 15, something like that.
Right.
Well, maybe 16. Like that's just been like, and then like every year we get one little progress is, development is progressing smoothly.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
And it's like
no update.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes there is no update. I'm just gonna say
no. I agree, and obviously it had a kind of a tumultuous development. We talked about like Platinum going their separate ways with the company.
Whole divorce.
Yeah, and so the game probably got.
You're lucky to even get the game at that point. To be honest.
Yeah, a lot of games would just stop. At that point.
Right. But anyways, that part I do like. I do like the idea of them being more in touch, having a more open communication and relationship with the audience.
Also,
they're making the game.
This could also just mean getting people from the public signing NDAs and getting in the development office.
And doing more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean getting
online
reactions. Yeah. So I guess you could look at this multiple different ways.
Right. I mean, I could see it being a combination.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Yep.
We'll be right back. We're back from our break, and we're going to jump into the U.S. Supreme Court declining to hear Apple's challenge to a lower court ruling in their battle with Epic Games. Epic Games being the makers of Fortnite and the Unreal Engine. And
Unreal Tournament and so many other properties.
And as we've discussed before, Unreal is used for like movies and TV show and not just video games anymore.
Tech demos, go to CES, like half the stuff's going to be powered by Unreal.
Yep. And last year, well, it's kind of been playing out for a while now, Epic Games made this big gamble by they put out an update for Fortnite on like mobile.
Yep.
And they added in this option to pay through their website to get more of the in-game currency, like V-Bucks.
In the mobile game, you can pay through their own.
Yeah, you can open up a link to a website which already has you logged in, and you can buy the in-game currency for cheaper than it costs when you buy it through Apple's App Store.
Right.
And this upset Apple greatly because it's a violation of their terms of service to offer an alternative payment method in-game.
Right.
So you can sell, like, if you try to subscribe to Netflix within iOS, you can't. The app will tell you, go to our website, sign up, and then come back and log in on your app.
Right.
Because if you make a subscription purchase, like for Netflix through iOS, Apple wants a 30% cut of that subscription purchase.
Right.
So Epic did this on purpose, knowing that Apple was going to delist their game.
Yeah.
And then they had immediately, like next day, when their game got delisted, they put in
they were ready for a lawsuit.
Were going to court.
Yeah.
And so we got through the whole court process over the last year or two. I'm a little fuzzy on when it started.
Yeah, it was.
It might have started in 2022.
Yeah, I think it was. It's been a long time.
And it got to a point where they went to court.
Yeah.
And Apple contested the results, and I believe Epic Games also contested some of the other results. And it got sent for the U.S. Supreme Court consideration. And the Supreme Court this past week...
There was a ruling, though, with the lower court.
There was, and we'll talk about what happened.
Okay. So
now that the Supreme Court has declined to take on an appeal, the lower court's ruling now has to go into effect.
Right.
So this is over. The story is now done.
Right.
Here's what they won. Here's what they lost. So we're going to start off by talking about Apple won the right to reject third-party app stores in their products. Apple also won the right to continue taking a cut of App Store purchases. So what does that mean? So currently on Android, third-party app stores can be installed.
Right.
Epic Games wanted to see Apple open themselves up to third-party app stores.
Right.
And Apple is notorious for being a closed ecosystem.
Very, very closed, very proprietary.
And so they have always wanted to shut down any potential third-party app store because that would remove any potential cut that iOS could take.
Right.
So Tim Sweeney was trying to get the court to force Apple to add... Tim Sweeney, sorry, he is the founder and guy that runs Epic Games.
The CEO of Apple is also Tim.
Tim, yeah. So you got Tim Sweeney and Tim Cook.
Right.
Battle of the Tims. So this was a big win for Apple. They continue to have the right to reinforce all of that.
Yep.
So what did Epic get out of this then? And it wasn't just Epic that won, I guess you could say. You could say it's a win for all developers.
Yes, yeah. Epic kind of went to battle against Apple on behalf of pretty much the industry.
I mean, there's definitely selfishness involved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, no.
But...
Epic Games is not some historical Robin Hood figure.
No.
Not at all.
No. But by taking Apple to court, they did make some things better for all developers.
Right.
So specifically, they've won the right to provide in-app links to alternative payment options via like web browsers. Mm-hmm. Meaning any developer that now puts out something on iOS can now incorporate alternative methods to purchase things. Yes. So now Netflix, if they want, or eventually whenever Apple updates their terms of service, which they have to now, they may have a grace period to get that sorted.
Right.
Now you should be able to subscribe to Netflix. You should be able to buy your V-Bucks for cheaper.
Right. Now, does this just apply to Apple, or does any mobile phone provider or...
This battle was specifically between Apple and Epic.
Okay.
So Google wasn't part of this. Right. Now whether...
Google already provides the ability to...
Yes.
To do
and
this.
You can open up browsers to make purchases and things like that on Android. So, I mean, does Google still also take a 30% cut of anything purchased through their store? Yes.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, if a third one were to come along someday, would they have to adhere to this? Is this now, like, a law, basically?
I suppose someone could... not do it, but then they might open themselves up to like, hey, there's precedent here.
Right.
So they might be foolish to not allow it initially and just end up wasting a bunch of money in court.
Right.
So yeah, it has set a precedent. So anybody, if a third phone manufacturer came in play, not Android, not iOS, but,
Right.
TOTOS.
It's litigation. It's not legislation. Not yet, at least.
No. So anyways, this is a big win, I feel.
Yeah.
In some capacity, especially for developers that don't want to cut in Apple on their
I mean, Apple kept some rights that they already had, but we being developers and gamers got the ability to now have in-app purchases that are not Apple.
Right, or not within the app.
Right.
Yeah. And so Fortnite specifically sells V-Bucks, which is their in-game premium currency where you buy skins and things like that.
Right.
Dance emotes.
Right.
They pitch this as like, hey, if we can sell it directly to them without Apple's cut, we can give it to consumers at a lower price.
Right.
So Apple still makes more money. There's the corn guy.
Yeah.
Epic still makes more money and consumers pay less. So they were like, hey, it's a win-win for everyone but Apple.
Right.
So Apple, of course, didn't want to take that sitting down, hence why this went all the way through the courts.
Supreme Court.
Yeah. You got so close to the Supreme Court, but not quite there.
Yeah.
I
mean, I want to almost know what the Supreme Court's like discussion was on whether they should take this or not.
But they declined. So that would have been great. That would be the closest video games have gotten to the Supreme Court ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe back in the 80s there was some stuff. I know like Activision went to court against Magnavox and that went pretty high. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we just want to keep you guys updated on that, and I'm curious to see developers embrace it. I wonder if consumers will. I wonder if they'll be more likely to trust the built-in app store as opposed to like a web browser.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that purchasing through the Apple App Store probably at least feels safer,
right?
Because.
But now, how do you think Fortnite is going to like pitch it when you go to the like shop page,
right?
And you go to buy V-Bucks? They're probably going to have their button, that opens the browser, be like real big
a banner ad or something,
as opposed to the one where you can buy through the app store. Right. Is going to be like small or
$5 off.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they do. Is they go, hey, buy it here, save 20%.
Another thing to consider too is now we're probably going to start seeing a bunch of Chinese apps and stuff have shady links to payment processing.
And I'm sure that was maybe one of Apple's arguments. Like, by keeping it our store only, we protect the consumers from harm.
Right.
And maybe they have an argument there.
Yeah. But, I mean, this does open the door to that.
I mean, it would still have to be an app that Apple approves.
Yeah, but their approval process...
it's automated completely at this point. All right, we're going to move on to another story here. Rockstar Games' parent company, Take-Two, takes issue with Remedy's logo. So, a little bit of backstory here. In April of 2023, Remedy, the studio behind Max Payne, Alan Wake, and Control, updated their logo for the first time in many, many years. Rockstar Games previously worked with Remedy on the Max Payne series of games.
Yep.
The first two games in the Max Payne series were like completely written and like directed by a guy at Remedy, but the third game was actually written and directed by one of the founders of Rockstar, which is interesting. Dan Houser, I think is his name. So it really has been a collaborative kind of effort with that series. But Remedy kind of moved away from Max Payne and started, making other games.
Right.
They are, although I should mention
Alan Wake.
Right, Alan Wake, Control. They had that like live action game on Xbox Series or Xbox One. Can't remember what it's called. It starred one of the Hobbits.
Was that the one we played a little bit of?
Maybe.
Okay.
But they are making a Max Payne from the ground up remake, apparently, of the first game, which means that they would have to be doing that in partnership with Rockstar.
Right.
So it's kind of strange that...
I wonder if Rockstar owns part of Max Payne's property.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I guess that means Take-Two also owns it because they're a subsidiary of Take-Two. So when Remedy put out their new logo, I think it was last April, this is what they said. The bullet and the letter R in the old logo represented the era of Max Payne. But the Remedy of now is much bigger than a single game. We have a whole portfolio of games, new and old. It was time to update and redefine our visual identity to bring more consistency, showcase our evolution over the years, and better express our vision of today's Remedy. Did you look at the new logo?
I did, yeah, I saw.
I think it's a nice logo.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
And when you look at the Rockstar logo and the Remedy logo, sure, they both feature the letter R.
I mean, the logo is the letter R in basically two different fonts with different styles.
Yeah.
But it's a giant capital letter R.
Yeah.
So I can understand from that angle, them being similar.
But the colors are so different.
No, the design is clearly different. Keep reading. I'll respond to
Take-Two. Take-Two wasn't persuaded by this wonderful argument for the new logo. And so they filed a trademark dispute.
You mean Remedy? Because it's Take-Two going after Remedy, right?
Take-Two is going after Remedy.
So Remedy is responding. You said Take-Two, didn't?
No. Take-Two, the parent company of Rockstar Games, decided that Remedy's new logo is too similar to that of Rockstar's. And Take-Two filed a trademark dispute in the UK on the grounds that there exists a likelihood of confusion on the part of the public.
Yeah. So that's the part that I can say no. Yeah, they are clearly different.
Yeah.
The color scheme is different. The style, the font, everything is different. I understand, like, that both trademarks are a giant capital letter R. Like, the whole trademark is a giant capital letter R. And so basically you have two logos of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand
so
that.
Take-Two, I mean, if they were to win this dispute,
Yeah,
or if this dispute were to go further, does that just mean that Take-Two owns the letter R?
Right.
Like, that would be insane to me.
And you can't.
But you know what's crazy is that these larger... Because in the grand scheme of things, Take-Two is a massive conglomerate, and Remedy is a AAA indie studio, I guess you could say. They're independent.
Yeah, they are.
They're an independent AAA studio.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
I mean, they partner with third parties a lot to publish their games, but you know they're wholly owned by themselves.
Right.
They're not public or anything like that.
Which is a rarity these days with all
for a studio of their size too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, everyone's getting
trying to gobble everyone up. Yeah. So yeah, I don't buy the argument either.
No.
And you know, but what happens though is that these bigger companies can bully you with these disputes and like the prospect of going to court just being too expensive for you, so that they effectively own the letter R even without like a judge saying they do.
Right.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, and especially when it's sometimes this happens in certain industries where it's like a dog pile and multiple parties are attacking one.
Yeah.
And then, that one might just go bankrupt just from lawyer fees and...
Right, so they just give in and they're like, fine, I'll change my logo, I'll change my title, whatever. So these filings were initiated in like May of last year, shortly after Remedy debuted their logo, but they were just discovered like this past week.
Yeah.
So Eurogamer actually reached out to someone at Remedy, and this is what Remedy said. Mm-hmm. There is nothing to see here. This was a discussion between our teams that was resolved entirely and amicably last year. Unfortunately, it took a little longer to complete than we had hoped due to some holiday scheduling. The legal filing was simply an initial formality, and Remedy and Take-Two continue to work together in partnership.
I have no problem with that response.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, I think that's the happiest ending that there is.
Right. So I'm going to say this, that I think this is something that happens way more often than we know about. Mm-hmm. I think trademark disputes between companies in the industry are happening all the time. This is just one instance where we actually caught wind of it. Yeah. The public or the press or whatever.
Because I think you really have to dig in like all kinds of government filings to find these kinds of things.
In the UK and stuff. Yeah. Like, you have to be like really looking for this kind of news. I think I also know with trademark laws, at least here in the United States, and I'm not a lawyer and I can't speak to this too extensively.
This is not legal advice.
Yeah, this is not legal advice. But I know that if you own a trademark, you have to show an active...
Oh, you got to use it.
Yeah, you have to use it and you have to protect it. So if you're not showing any kind of active protection
of it
efforts,
right,
you can lose it. Okay. Like the trademark department or whatever can actually like...
So are you saying that maybe this was just... Possibly, maybe just some fabricate. Like, hey, Remedy, can we go after you to show that, we're active with our trademark?
I don't think it happens quite like that, okay. But yes, and it could be. It could be that. And I think companies are constantly doing this to each other. I really do.
I think another thing it could be...
And not just logos, like designs.
Oh, yeah.
And, control schemes and stuff like that. Go ahead.
It is, like, sometimes one arm of a company, the legal department... Mm-hmm. is just doing things independently and not like,
that's true,
we're friends with them, we work with them, right. Like we're development partners.
I think, I do think that some companies, especially the bigger ones, give their legal department just free range to just make their own decisions. If you see something that looks sus, go after it.
Yeah.
Like, do the
Send
papers.
That cease and desist. Send that dispute.
And they don't collaborate.
Yeah.
And so a company who's totally friendly and has collaboration in the past and stuff might get like served a cease and desist or something.
What's funny is that Take-Two is known for being like aggressively protective. There was this game, it won Game of the Year, I think 2 years ago, like a indie-ish game, It Takes Two, made by Hazelight. They got made by the company who made Brothers.
Okay.
It's like basically he's specific the guy that runs this company, Hazelight, this development studio. He specifically makes co-op games. He also made A Way Out. Which is that like the two brothers in jail, and like it's like the whole game is split screen.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't remember that one, but I do remember Brothers.
Yeah. And so the game is called It Takes Two. It's about this like...
Isn't that a Mary-Kate and Ashley
well, okay,
movie?
maybe it is.
I think it is.
The game is called It Takes Two. It's about this couple who has like a, I don't know, 8-year-old kid, and they're like thinking about getting divorced. For some strange reason, they get turned into these like toys, and they have to like work together, resolve their issues, and like get out of this conundrum that they've gotten themselves into. And at the end of the game, you know, they've like grown stronger together.
Gotcha. Okay.
And yeah, it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. I want to say 2 years ago, maybe it was 3.
Game for Impact or
no, like Game of the Year.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Like yeah, the big one.
Yeah.
So like a very small studio winning Game of the Year.
Gotcha.
There was this famous incident at the Game Awards where the founder of this company years ago, he was invited up on stage to like introduce something or talk about his new game. He's the guy who said "F the Oscars" and like flipped off the camera.
Shoot. I don't remember that happening.
Okay, yeah. I can't think of his name right now. It's a little embarrassing, but oh well. So yeah, they went after It Takes Two because the name of their big company is Take-Two.
Yeah.
So it's like...
See, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's like so hyper-aggressive.
Yeah, that's
like,
very aggressive.
No one can use Take-Two ever?
Yeah, there's been instances of this kind of thing in the past in the games industry. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the Edge guy that owned Edge Magazine or founded Edge Magazine. This goes way back, but he went after everybody who used the word Edge. In any kind, he went after. That's the reason that Soul Edge got turned into Soul Calibur.
Really?
He went after Mirror's Edge.
Oh wow!
Really hard, and they actually fought him.
What's funny is probably Mirror's Edge has probably been on the cover of Edge magazine.
Yeah,
at some point.
Probably. Yeah, but yeah, he went after a mobile game and shut down the company.
Oh wow!
Yeah, just he got stripped of his trademarks for like abusing them.
Okay, good. You know, Edge magazine is one of the last few remaining game magazines out there.
Yeah.
And it is it's known for being very difficult with their review scores. So people are always like, they're always on the edge of their seat waiting for the Edge reviews to drop. You know. Watch out! I might get sued for saying that.
I do know that like that magazine is notorious for like being really shrewd in their reviews and stuff.
So it's I'm always curious. I guess it works because I am curious when I see like because usually the review numbers leak online before the magazine gets released. It's like someone just writes down all the reviews that they read when it was in the warehouse or something. Writes down all the numbers and posts it online. So I'm always curious to look at the number score. It's very like old school, like oh my god, what number did they get? You know?
Yeah, still feels like we're in the 90s.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. That's the only publication that I'm even remotely interested in like seeing because they're like so protective and like kind of old school. But hey, I respect that they're still around and they're still printing a magazine unlike a lot of other magazines. Did you know that GameStop, you can't get a print subscription of Game Informer delivered to you anymore?
Really?
The only way to get the print magazine of Game Informer is to buy it in store.
Wow.
For $7 new.
If you have a subscription, can you just pick it up in store?
No. That's not a benefit of being a pro member anymore. You can get the digital version for free as part of your pro membership.
Okay.
But if you want the physical magazine, you have to go in store to get it. So that
stinks.
If it's not close to being, you know, eradicated. I mean, Game Informer is probably on its last year or two. At least as a physical magazine. I do think Game Informer will stick around beyond that.
Yeah.
But it does worry me when GameStop owns it.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I think Game Informer's in enough of a position to live independently, no?
Maybe. I mean, if Game Informer just decides to close them, or if GameStop decides to close them, then what say do they have in it?
Yeah, that's true.
But we're going to move on from that topic and talk about our last story for the week. And this is the sales data for the top 20 selling games of 2023 in the U.S. Matt Piscatella of Circana, formerly the MPD Group, whose job it is to report sales data for the video game industry, published the list of the 20 best-selling games of 2023. We're going to go through the list, and then we'll talk about some things we think need to maybe be mentioned.
Let's start at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, let's build our way up.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So keep in mind... let's just start at the bottom. Okay, so in 2023... The 20th best-selling game of the year is Minecraft. More than a decade later.
That's crazy to think about.
It's still in the top 20.
Yeah. If there's ever been a live, for me, a live service game is Minecraft. Because it just
gets update after update after update.
And then you have a whole community, and because it's a building game.
Right.
With people... thousands, millions of people contributing
not exactly. You can have your own server.
Right.
And you can invite people to play in your server. I don't think it has some astronomical cap though. You can't have 20,000 people playing in your world.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, okay.
I think there are maybe bigger servers that have more people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if players host their own server or how that
works. I'm sure Mojang or Microsoft now.
Right. Well, because there's Minecraft Classic.
Yeah.
And then there's the modern Minecraft that's constantly getting iterated upon.
Right. I'm sure this is referring to that one.
Yeah. Probably combined, but I think the modern Minecraft is the more popular one at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's some purists that like the classic Minecraft.
But all I was going to say is Microsoft probably offers a hosting service at this point for servers.
Maybe, yeah. Or maybe it's just hosted locally on your machine whenever you're online.
Yeah,
it's peer-to-peer rather than
could be that too.
On Microsoft servers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's possible that maybe players can set up a machine that just acts as a perpetual Minecraft server.
You could do that with anything.
Yeah. If they offer that kind of support. A lot of games are doing away with player-hosted servers.
Yeah.
Call of Duty used to have a lot of player-hosted servers.
That's a topic for another time. I want to talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of games are getting rid of that, and I don't see why.
Right.
I really don't. Well, it feels like piracy and DRM and there's
they're worried about that.
Right.
All right. Coming in at number 19 is Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. So we already knew Mario Kart 8 was probably going to be on this list.
It is Nintendo's best-selling game of all time, I believe.
Yeah. It is currently the top-selling title on Switch, it's a remake. Or it's a re-release.
Yeah, it's essentially a deluxe version of a Wii U game.
Right.
With added content. Now, let's keep in mind, over the last 2 years, they have been releasing lots and lots of new courses for the game in the form of DLC. Which you get as part of your subscription to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion plan, which is the second tier of the Nintendo Switch Online plan.
Right.
Or you could, I think it's $25 or $30 to own
everything.
The courses, yeah. But yeah, it's crazy that we're talking about another nearly decade-old game.
Right.
Still in the charts.
Still getting new content, so it's not like people are playing an old game.
Right, but even before this new content was being added, it was still selling gangbusters year after year.
Right.
So yeah, and we can see it here. There's an asterisk next to Mario Kart 8.
Yeah.
And there's an asterisk next to every first-party Nintendo title on here, and we'll talk about why that is in a little bit.
Yeah.
Number 18 is Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the big From Software title from last year. Makes sense that it's still on the list. It was a really big game. Huge, strong
We're also
word
seeing
of mouth.
all the nominees from the Game Awards for Game of the Year on this list.
Yeah, pretty much. So we'll move on from that one. We're just going to go through these a little more quickly unless they're worth discussing further. Street Fighter 6, that makes sense. It's good to see a fighting game in the top 20.
Yeah.
Fighting games are notoriously kind of high barrier of entry.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't feel like they're for them. This is actually a game that I purchased last year. I wanted to get it signed at Comic-Con.
Nice.
With the director. But yeah, it's great to see Street Fighter alive and well.
They undersell, fighting games.
Yeah. I mean, I think Street Fighter did pretty good, but not as good as another fighting game on this list, but we'll get there. Final Fantasy 16, fittingly, came in 16th place.
Yeah, number 16.
And so, we talked a little earlier that maybe they were worried about sales for the game last year, but, I mean, still made it in the top 20 in the U.S. I think that's a respectable position.
100%.
For an original Final Fantasy title.
Yes.
Dead Island 2, finally released after, like, a decade of being announced.
Yeah. So, that one, honestly... there are a few that surprised me, but that one kind of... like...
the first Dead Island game was like such a strong success.
Yeah.
And then they announced Dead Island 2 a couple of years after the first game came out at like the Sony press conference in like 2013 or something like that, 2014.
Right. Yeah, it was. I remember that.
And it just never came out. Yeah. And it apparently went through like a new developer eventually got a hold of the game. So I think there was just sort of like a nostalgia. Like all the people who played it, 8-9 years ago were like, hey, Dead Island's back.
All bought it.
And so they all bought it.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to... I haven't played it.
Yeah.
So I want to put a little asterisk next to my comment there.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so it's a great game and it's worth this buy.
Obviously.
I'm happy for Dead Island
Based
fans.
on numbers, it's a good game.
Well, we both know that doesn't mean a game is good.
Right, that's true, yeah.
But people bought it.
Yeah.
And then we have MLB The Show, the 2023 version of this. Yep. What's interesting to note is that MLB The Show, I think it was 2022, was the first year it became a non-PlayStation Studios exclusive. Mm-hmm. So it's made by a first-party PlayStation studio, but it's now published on Nintendo Switch, and it's now published on the Xbox series of consoles.
It's not EA that does MLB?
No. MLB The Show is
PlayStation.
Is made by Sony San Diego.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense, because I'm remembering it being shown at, like, PlayStation booths and stuff. Okay.
So that's Sony. Now that they basically wanted to keep it exclusive, but Major League Baseball was like, we're going to take the license away from you unless you agree to make it multi-platform, because we're both losing out on a lot of money here.
Right. Come on, guys.
Yeah. But, Sony, of course, wanted to make it exclusive so people would invest into their ecosystem.
Right, yeah.
That was the idea. But rather than lose it, they figure, forget it. We'll just make more money.
They're still making money on Xbox sales. Like, they still get revenue from that.
Right, but now there's more people taking cuts of things. Yeah. But it's still money. Resident Evil 4, the 2023 remake, ended up on 13 on the list here.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well liked remake. So good for them.
Dude, I saw the VR little video.
You mentioned being scared.
I would never.
Yeah.
I don't think I would.
Even though that is a more action-y... It was sort of the beginning of the action-y Resident Evil games.
Its development cycle didn't start that way.
Right.
It looked more like... The beta version looked like a Silent Hill title.
Okay.
Like it slow walking but...
It's considered by a lot of people to be the best Resident Evil.
Oh, myself included.
Like it walked the fine line of still being horror but also being action.
Yeah.
Whereas Resident Evil 5 went almost like full action. And like
heavy machine gun.
Yeah, action. Just a smidge of horror, you know. next on the list we have Super Mario Brothers Wonder at number 12, which is, considering how late that game came out last year, that's really good.
Yeah.
This game also has an asterisk next to it, which we'll touch on shortly. And then at number 11, we have Starfield from Bethesda Game Studios and Microsoft.
Yep. We knew that game was going to be on here.
I knew it would do well. Yeah, I think some people are maybe surprised it didn't do as well. You know, people were thinking it's going to be Skyrim in space. And
right.
It wasn't that.
Yeah, it's number 11 on the list, which isn't bad.
And this is where we start getting into a lot of the sports games and things like that. Right. We had a little bit of that already, but now we're going to be seeing more of the usual suspects in the top 10.
That's okay. They're games too.
Yeah. So we have, they're games, but they have they've stripped out so much of the now it's all about microtransactions in these sports games. Yeah. That's what's disappointing.
And they're worth a DLC download. Yeah. They're not worth a standalone title.
Right.
Like, they update jerseys and...
Like, it's crazy. When the new sports game comes out that year, last year's sports game gets discounted so heavily.
Yeah.
You can find it for $5.
Oh, yeah. If you go back a few years, you can literally, less than $5. Yeah. A game that was $60.
Yeah. And so... this is EA Sports FC 24. So EA lost the license with FIFA. So now they've had to start making individual agreements with teams. And so now it's just FC standing for football club.
Okay.
So yeah, now they have their own non-FIFA licensed football game. Yeah.
When did that happen?
Either this year or the year before was the first year.
Shoot.
So FIFA, it may be that another FIFA game comes out someday, but basically FIFA was asking for way too much of the money.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and these sports games are a lot of people getting pieces of the pie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got teams, you've got owners, you've got players, all taking cuts from these things.
Yeah.
You want the biggest football player on the planet. When I say football, I mean
soccer.
FUT. They all want to cut, you know?
Yeah.
So it's I guess that's maybe why maybe these games couldn't exist if it wasn't for all the microtransactions now.
Yeah.
I don't really know. But yeah, I think there was a purity to the sports games in the 90s.
Oh, 100%.
Those games were fun.
Yeah, the sports games on Genesis were really good.
Yeah.
And some of them had you could save the game on a Genesis cartridge.
Right.
Which the only non-sports game that I know could do that, and this might not be the only one, but the only one I knew of was Sonic 3.
Right.
But a golf game, I can save my game.
You can resume it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But yeah, unfortunately, all these sports games are now heavily bogged down in microtransactions. Yes. You have to spend and spend and spend to get the players you want.
Yep.
Or you can grind for hundreds of hours.
And don't they have passes and stuff, season passes?
Oh yeah. It's just littered with it. It's a shadow of its former self. There's no fun in it anymore to me. But people that are into these games, that's all they play all year, and they spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on some of these games.
Do you know if these sports games have a presence in esports? I'm guessing yes.
Yeah, they have their own tournaments and things. Yeah, you don't really hear about it in the general gaming discussion.
Yeah,
but they're out there for sure. You don't hear about it the way you hear about it Evo.
Evo, okay.
Yeah.
So they're lesser than Evo.
Definitely.
Gotcha.
Fighting games have a major... I don't think fighting games sell as much as the sports games.
Right.
But people pay... The general gaming population is more interested in fighting games.
Watching a fighting game,
yeah. And then next on the list we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Ben's happy.
Yeah.
To hear about. Number 9 on the list here. This is the new Respawn Star Wars game. Had kind of a shaky start. A lot of bugs. A lot of glitches. Seemingly, especially on PlayStation platforms. The game got a lot of patches. It launched physically as nothing on the disc.
A broken...
you put the disc in, and then the entire game downloads.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the disc was just the launcher, so you're not even getting a game.
Yeah.
So that game was when they basically it needed more time in the oven.
Oh yeah.
But they had some kind of deadline.
Well,
EA was like, "Hey, you need to get that out." So they printed the discs months and months in advance.
You got EA and Disney both.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, we got earnings reports.
I would not want to work on a Star Wars game.
Yeah. You know, Ubisoft is making a new open world Star Wars game.
Really?
Yeah. I think that comes out late this year, they said. But moving on to number 8.
Yeah.
We got Mortal Kombat 1.
Mortal Kombat 1.
So, interesting.
Interesting, that's all the way up at number 8.
While Street Fighter 6 is down at 17.
Yeah, right.
Now, keep in mind, this is just the U.S.
Yeah.
And basically, Mortal Kombat is the U.S.'s fighting game.
Yeah, it is, 100%. Yeah.
All other major fighting games
Yeah.
are made in Japan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know Riot is working on a fighting game called Project... Well, it's known as Project L right now.
Okay.
Which they made publicly playable for the first time at EVO last year.
I bet you it's a League fighting game.
I think it's tied into League somehow.
Okay.
Like the League universe.
Right.
League of Legends we're talking about. But yeah, it's good to see Mortal Kombat selling so
100%.
well.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that.
And then we have 2022's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
So the previous year's Call of Duty game still doing very well in 2023.
Okay, yeah, I see. I see the delineation here.
And keep in mind that was not a remake, but like the new Modern Warfare 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that supposed to be a sequel to Modern Warfare 2?
Okay, so I think the year before or 2 years before, they made Modern Warfare, 2020, which is basically a reboot of the Modern Warfare series.
Okay.
So if they were to continue it, it would have been like Modern Warfare 4, but like they just decided to kind of start
put
fresh.
A year on the end of it? Call them all 2 and put a year on the end of it?
Well, no, so Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and then you have the year, because it shares the same exact title as the Call of Duty Modern Warfare that came out years prior. It's like when Tomb Raider came out again.
Why did they do this? I don't understand.
We're chronologically confused. So yeah, it's a new Modern Warfare series, but it has the same title.
Okay.
So the year is implied.
Right.
Or there just to like differentiate between the two. It's not actually on the box, parentheses 2022.
Right. I mean, it might as well be.
Yeah. I mean, when you look it up online, like on GameFAQs, it'll have the parentheses around it.
I mean, that's some creativity right there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, then at number 6, also kind of fitting, we have Diablo 4. Why is it fitting? Well, 666, the devil, I guess.
Oh, yeah, okay. Satan's number.
I mean, it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
There's only 1 6. But, I'm trying to make it work here. So that's no surprise.
No.
This is Diablo's first time launching simultaneously on console alongside the PC counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
So it did do really, really well. This game has had its fair share of controversy in the last year with players revolting and rioting at changes and lack of changes and all kinds of stuff.
We talked about some of that. I think we reported.
I think we did, yeah. But yeah, still selling well. Yeah. Clearly. And then at number 5, we've got another asterisk title with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. To me, that seems low.
Number 5?
Yeah, at number 5 for Zelda. But I think there's a good reason for that, and we'll reveal that in a moment. At number 4, we have Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Taking up that slot. Another Sony's massive, biggest game last year, for sure. And then we have Madden NFL 24 coming in at number 3. And, good to see that John Madden's name. Yeah. Even though I don't care at all about football. But,
yeah, it'll be a sad day when that series
drops it.
Called something else, yeah. Because that has just been going on since NES.
Yeah.
And maybe prior.
Right. Was Genesis the first Madden game?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I'm not sure. I know there were NFL
there were NFL games
prior to Madden.
You know what? Yeah. a console that I'm not going to get into called the RDI Halcyon. Only has 2 games on it. One of them is a Madden title, I believe. So it predates NES.
Okay. And then at number 2, we've got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 2023.
Yeah.
So they've now remade Modern Warfare, the whole trilogy,
come on, guys.
time. But as a different game. They just kept the title.
Yeah.
So
they just
silly.
That's ridiculous.
So if Call of Duty is not number 1, who could it be that's number 1?
Yeah.
And, it's been since 2008, I think Matt noted, that a Call of Duty game or a game developed by Rockstar has not taken the number 1 spot.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking like 16 years.
Yeah.
It's been since a non-Call of Duty or Rockstar-made game has been number 1. And it's Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
The most normie game.
Yeah, that's why. That is why.
It's made for Muggles.
If you want to think about it, Warner Brothers Games, they own Mortal Kombat.
That's true. So they've got 2 big hits on their hands this year.
So,
but yeah, Hogwarts Legacy has dethroned Call of Duty, which I won't lie, it's kind of nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, could have been something better, but
well, let's talk about that asterisk real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what does this asterisk next to Nintendo's games mean? That means that Nintendo does not provide digital sales data to Circana for their reporting. Mm-hmm. Which means all these other games have physical and digital sales data combined.
Yes.
To give you their sales position for the year. Meanwhile, none of these Nintendo games provide their digital numbers. Mm-hmm. So, why Nintendo doesn't?
It doesn't make sense.
I have no idea. But if they did, you can be well sure that the position of all 3 of these games would move up significantly.
Oh, yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom could be number 1. Could be number 2.
Well, I think you and I talked in a previous episode, maybe last week, where we kind of assumed or guessed that in Nintendo's case, it's about 50-50 between physical and digital. Well, we think.
We think possibly. I mean, I do think with some titles, you are likely to see people want the physical.
Yeah. More so with Nintendo.
Like Zelda and Mario, they're they've bought them all up to this point since they were kids.
Yeah.
So they want that physical copy on their shelf.
There's more of a hunger for physical.
So I do think those 2 titles in particular could lean a little more heavily physical.
Yes.
Definitely, I would say.
I can't imagine buying Zelda digital.
Yeah. I mean, how they incentivize players now is the game's preloaded and it launches at 9 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
So it's rather than waiting for your Amazon package to show up, which might be late.
Yeah.
So people who are I gotta have it.
The second it drops.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand.
Okay, I am guilty of this.
Yeah, you are like that.
For one series in particular, Pokemon.
Yeah, I know you are.
I double dip on at least one. So, when they released Scarlet and Violet, I did have Violet pre-ordered digitally. Now, for me, I won't lie, it is nice to easily be able to swap between my Pokemon games digitally, because when I'm doing Pokemon Home stuff, just bouncing between all my games and finding stuff in my boxes to bring it
without having to replace the cartridge,
which I know is just it's an excuse for laziness.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I enjoy removing cartridges.
Yeah,
I like that click. Yeah, I like that. That sound.
But let's talk more about you being a little piggy.
Of course, I mean, look, when a new Pokemon game comes out, I take the next day off of work.
Yeah, I know.
So it's I am up at midnight.
This goes all the way back to high school when you took days off.
Yeah, for Pokemon Coliseum. Well, my mom graciously let me stay home the following day.
Yeah, well, you would have just played sick if she didn't.
She usually could tell if I was sick.
Well, I don't know. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same game 10 hours from now. So I don't.
Yeah, I just, it makes me feel like a kid again.
Yeah.
Like, staying up until 4 a.m. playing.
Right.
Like, so, like, for me, it's kind of a nostalgia. Like, I don't do that often with games anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a new Pokemon generation to me is like,
Yeah.
it's crack.
See, so I didn't do that when I was a kid either.
Oh, okay.
It's because I was,
Well, I mean, I wasn't doing that until high school, really.
Okay.
But, like, I mean, I did pre-order, like, I remember going into Target with my silver version pre-order slip,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and running over to the electronics booth and being yelled at by
For running.
Yeah, by the employees, like, no running!
Yeah.
So I'm, like, power walking.
That would be you. I
mean, me and my brother both, we were darting to the electronics booth. And, yeah, picking up silver version. Yeah.
See, I had to, like, do chores and make myself enough money to go pay for it by myself.
Oh, I mean, I did that. I mean, that's how I got my games.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, occasionally my grandpa would treat me, you know? But, yeah, I mean, I had to do chores around. I had to do a lot of chores around the house. Like, my mom, I know this is getting off topic, but, like, it would be Saturday night at, like, 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And she would just get into, like, a cleaning mode.
Yeah.
And then, like, me and my brother get roped into it, and we're cleaning until, like, 2 in the morning.
Yeah. That's crazy.
You know, but, like, that's how I earned my keep.
That makes sense. Knowing your mom, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you feel on that topic?
What's crazy is I missed that. I want to go clean with my mom.
Okay. Nothing's stopping you. You can do it. But how do you? I mean, on that topic, how do you feel about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet not being on this list? I feel like it kind of maybe should be on this list, but it's not.
That's that's a good point because it came out in November of 20.
And the DLC came out even later, more recently.
Right.
So
I mean, DLC doesn't get reported.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess it would have been reported from those physical versions that they did.
Right.
But I don't think they made very many because not very many people are going to drop $100 on a physical game bundle with the DLC.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We just talked about how Nintendo
So those would have been reported.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they would have sold that many to make it on the list.
But yeah, one would think.
I guess Pokemon sales are heavily front loaded.
What do you mean?
Like,
the
people that buy Pokemon games buy them in the year.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of players probably pre-ordered and purchased that game immediately.
Right.
So like there wasn't. Although I do know that like there are long tail, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I think we discussed last year. They're like the third or fourth best-selling pair of Pokemon games ever, and they're likely to like overtake like Gold and Silver even.
Wow. Yeah, but I mean, not more than Minecraft.
No.
Apparently.
No, not more than Minecraft. So yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't want to sound sad about it. Like I'm not like my game didn't make the list. You know,
Right.
like that's not gonna. I'm not gonna cry about that.
Right.
I mean, I'm a freak when it comes to Pokemon, but like, I'm
not that much.
I'm
of
not
a freak.
a console warrior. You know, or I'm not anymore.
Right.
So yeah, it's just crazy to. I mean, I wish Nintendo did give those numbers because I would love to see.
Why do you think they don't?
You know,
if you had to guess.
Nintendo does the opposite of what everyone else does all the time.
They do the opposite of what everyone else.
And there's just there's a mystique to Nintendo.
Yeah.
There's like what's going on over there in that normal looking corporate building.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like people are at the gates, you know, shaking and foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that adds to the quirky Nintendo. We do it our way.
Maybe they don't believe in digital and feel like they're sticking it to it. I
don't think so because they have digital incentives now. It's for $100. You can buy this thing, like this digital voucher that can get you, or maybe it's not even $100. Maybe it's $90. I can't remember what the price is. Yeah. But you can get two $60 games for $100 digitally only. So you buy this $100 voucher, and it helps you save
$20.
$20 effectively.
Yeah.
Buying 2 first-party Nintendo games. So, I mean, they are incentivizing digital purchases for sure.
Yeah, that is an incentive.
And at least that's a bigger incentive than anyone else is offering to go digital.
Yeah. I can't imagine spending $100 on digital goods. But
I mean, you're getting a game.
Are you though?
Yeah, I know. There's an argument to be made. You're not.
End transmission.